Welcome to episode number 341, where I'm speaking with Dr. Sujatha Kekada about the Ayurvedic perspective on eating disorders. We talk about the role the mental gunas of rajas and tamas play in eating disorders and the recommended holistic Ayurvedic protocol for treating disordered eating. So please stay tuned. Hi there, I'm your host Colette, and on this podcast I will be sharing the teachings of Ayurveda, yoga, and holistic health practices. Now, if you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend checking out the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Thanks for listening, and now here's a new episode. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm very happy to welcome back our regular guest, Dr. Sujatha Kekada, who is the head physician and co-founder of AmrtaSiddhi Ayurvedic Clinic in Ubud, Bali. She's a certified Ayurvedic doctor with a degree from Rajiv Gandhi University in India. And Dr. Sujatha's profound understanding of Ayurvedic medicine and her deep love for plants is the basis for her exceptional ability to diagnose the root causes of diseases and to find effective remedies. Combining intuition and compassion with bright intelligence and a rock-solid pragmatism, she is able to effectively guide people truly individually, just as the spirit of Ayurveda demands. Dr. Sujatha, many people are familiar with you, but I want you to read out your bio for the new people. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Colette. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you.
My pleasure. And this is a very important topic today, and unfortunately one that is very common, disordered eating. And I think particularly today with social media and the rise of filters. It's a very sensitive subject, and I'm sure, like me, you come across many people who have disordered eating, and it's something that really needs to be discussed in depth. So let's start with discussing the eating and the agni tendencies of each dosha type, just to get an understanding there, particularly for people who are new to Ayurveda. So the doshas of vata, pitta, and kapha, how do they experience hunger?
Yes, we need to understand this because need for food, the one experienced desire for food varies from three constitutions. So now we are in a tendency of generalizing the nutritional needs or when to eat. There's so many variations of going on. So depending on your constitution, it also means the different needs for food, different kinds of food, different quantities of food, different calories of food. Generally, a general rule is like all those Ayurvedic listeners here, you probably heard me several times saying in different podcasts that eat when you're hungry. So hunger is the indication of the level of agni and how good is your agni working. So depending on your constitution, everybody experiences the amount of the agni or the expression of agni differently. Vatas agni generally tend to be, they don't have a strong sense of hunger, so strong sense for wanting to eat food. We call their agni is very sensitive, very like a vishama tendency. That means it can vary. If you get distracted, if you're busy with anything exciting for you, you forget to eat. Vata generally have a tendency to eat on the go, nibble a little bit, eat small quantity of food, and they're busy. They obviously forget, and they only experience need for eating food is they feel very weak or shaky, hypoglycemia tendency. So it's important for a Vata person, if you see yourself as a Vata person, that you sit down and eat small to medium quantity of food 3 times a day and maybe have an extra snack in between, because you're generally not able to eat large quantity of food because the agni is small and it need to be nurtured. It's like when you make a campfire, you want to give like a small pieces of wood to support this agni. You're not going to put a big piece of log of wood to get the fire going. So your agni is in mild to moderate. So you need to feed the hunger. When you sense it, sit down and eat the food, which is light in nature, well moistened, all this way. So vata, distracting yourself while you're eating, or forgetting your meals, or postponing your eating when you sense the hunger. This is where you're going to go against the body's natural metabolism or ability to digest, process, and absorb and assimilate food. So I'm talking here not only that agni related to your digestive system, I'm talking also the ability to transform the food in your liver, transform the food in your cellular level, and forming ojas, forming this essence, which gives you, like almost a battery there for you, or the chi, and give you the strength, balancing of all your hormones, all those things. So this is what a vata need to focus. And pitta, who are generally the group of people who are very blessed with agni. They have a very robust, strong agni, and they are also want to eat good amount of food. They probably need 3 meals a day. They're generally hungry when you wake up, and they need a breakfast, they need lunch, they need a dinner. And if they've been physically training, they might need an extra food. And the quantity of food is also generally a surplus amount for pitta. And the Pitta's Agni is very clear cut. They experience the hunger, appetite, desire for food very clearly. It's combined with hunger and appetite. So for them, delaying meal is very dangerous because it produces all the hydrochloric acid, digestive enzymes, and then you don't eat. It's going to start working on the mucosa of your stomach lining or the intestines. And that's where the acid reflux, ulcerations, heartburn, all these things manifest in a Pitta constitution. So there's good Agni. That means you also need to give the good amount of solid food to digest and support this Agni. Otherwise, it's going to burn your body tissue. Sometimes this happens in hyperthyroidism, where metabolism speeds up and you don't have enough nutrition to fuel the Agni. So you need some guru or heavy kind of food, whole grains and good amount of protein, a lot of fibrous food. All those things is needed to nurture this Agni so that it doesn't go into an imbalance and manifests itself into a disease. And our next group of people who are predominant with kapha, or the Agni is influenced by kapha, we call the Agni is more on a manda side. It means it's a little dull. It's not so penetrative, not so sharp, not so intense as pitta, but not as unstable as vata. It's more steady. It's a steady, less intense Agni. So in this group of people, they're generally not so hungry so frequently. So this is a group of people you can do intermittent fasting. So this is where it's supportive because you don't feel hungry when you wake up. You got to be active a little bit in the morning. And then once the body starts to warm up and move and you started burning the sugar that's stored up over the night, then the hunger signs start to happen. Then the Agni, initiates. So eating after 10 o'clock and then having another meal before 6 o'clock before the sunset is an ideal way to balance your body weight or your energy and not having any stagnation, accumulation of unwanted substance or production of ama. So they need a longer gap between each meals. So I'm talking here like average people, we work 8 hours a day and we go to gym or do some walks and exercise. This rule can change for people who are doing high exhaustion physical activities, training for a marathon. Then you want to pay attention to those needs of the body, and then you can definitely eat according to there's a need and provide the amount of the calories or the group of food that you would need, because there's a big demand of calorie burn and energy expenditure. So this is what generally happens. And if you know the tendency of hunger, how often you feel, and the desire for food, and you got to respect that. So vata, knowing that their Agni is weak. So when they feel hungry, within 10 minutes, I would say you got to sit down and eat. Otherwise, the hunger goes away and then you don't feel hungry, but it doesn't mean that your body doesn't need the nutrition. It's start going to feel depleted. And where pitta, and even if you want to, pitta is going to get agitated if you delay eating. So there is a natural tendency of, sit down and eat, or you're going to be grumpy and you're going to be irritated towards people, and you're going to end up making mistakes if you're working, all those things. So generally, your body is built to demanding food and wanting to eat, and you will not compromise unless you completely lost connection to yourself. Where kapha, in the other hand, as I mentioned, their agnis tend to be a little bit of dull and takes a long time to cook and digest the food. But they might have a bit of a desire. Kapha loves eating food. So this is something a kapha need to generally be mindful of, not wanting to eat just because they desire food or seafood. Here, a little bit of a practice for their mind not to become greedy or eating for just attachment or just a simple pleasure. Food need to be both nourishing and pleasureful, but it should not be most of the time just only eating for pleasure when there is an absence of hunger or the sensation or a physical demand for it, physical asking for the food.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for laying that foundation, because I think it's really important for people to understand, the doshic and the agni tendencies. And of course, we want to respect that. And so now moving more into the discussion on eating disorders, they can occur for many different reasons, right? Including physical, behavioral, social, psychological, many other factors can be at play here. But what I would like to ask you is about the role of the mental gunas or the mind, mental gunas being rajas and tamas, or the mind. What role does the mind play in eating disorders?
The reference for eating disorder in the Ayurvedic text is given as a condition called aruchi. Means completely loss of desire for wanting to eat or reluctance towards eating and nourishment. So this is considered as it's not considered as one of the disease. It can be seen in many other diseases. Particularly here, it's related to completely lack of agni. Both in koshtas and in your liver. Koshta means your digestive system, bhutagni in the transformation process of your liver, lacking enzymes, and then the tissue level. When it starts to experiencing in the tissue level, it has got to do with the mind also. Vata is the one predominant cause. It can be influenced by pitta and kapha also, but initially it's the vata which kind of get out of balance. And vata is generally, wanting to have any initiation of anything, any initiation of activeness of your mind or physical body movement. All those things are controlled by vata. So there's basically this motivation factor that doesn't come. Because desire to eat is a motivation. Oh, I want to taste this food. I want to have this pleasure. So it starts with vata being inactive and then leading into agni mandya, then pitta getting affected, and then completely kapha, dullness and stagnation. So you can see the mixture of beginning point with vata affecting the mind and then the agni completely getting disturbed, destructive, and then leading into a kapha stagnation. So basically in a guna-wise, mind-wise, we are here dealing with a lot of rajas and tamas. So rajas can be seen in the imbalance of vata and in the pitta, and tamas is purely connected to increase in kapha. So and when you're experiencing too much of rajas, there's a lot of, confusion, delusion, overly identified with one thing and disconnected from the reality, disconnected from oneself, disconnected from sattva. The purity and, self-awareness is missing. We are attached to some other sort of identity. As you mentioned beginning, like comparing to other people, social media, all these different screens people use to portray themselves out for people to be seen. So we're living in an illusion world already, and then completely disconnected from ourselves, and we're spending time on internet or social medias and stuff. We just want to be loved and liked and be like someone else. So we lose who am I and my strength, and you completely deviated away from the source of who you are. This in Ayurveda we call prakriti, the true nature, the nature that you're born with a perfect balance. Using that, you can say a genetic code or genetic perfectness that you're born with, and you want to identify that and nurture that, either seeing strength being a vata or being a pitta or a kapha or dual doshic support that you're born with. So we kind of go far away from this, far away from our real nature, and try to be something else. So it's just you're trying to swim against the stream and completely in tamasic state or in the rajasic state.
And so the rajasic state that you talked about with the vata and aruchi in particular being a lack of agni, a lack of interest in food, little to no appetite there. So in that state, would that lead to more lack of eating and more restriction when it comes to food? And then tamas being the other end of the spectrum, being more comfort eating, emotional eating, more binge eating?
Absolutely. Yeah. It could start as dislike towards food, aversion towards food, or a phobia towards food. Like when vata increases, the fear is the mental quality that develops. And you could start with that, or you could stay in that stage and, occasionally feel relaxed and calm, and you might eat and then go in and out of that spectrum, or constantly struggling with the taste of the food or like for the food or the fear of the food. And then if it is more on a tamasic state, then the greed and attachment is the main principles of tamas in the mind level. So then you eat for the greed or eat to feel calm and relaxed. This is another tendency. A vata could also have the binge eating tendency and bulimic tendencies because of they want to run away from the feelings or what's going on and some sort of comfort, particularly when it comes to eating a lot of sugar and chocolates, overeating of that, because it does give us some sort of relief temporarily. And then the fear kicks in, and then the bulimia tendency happens in
right.
vata. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people don't, correlate that with vata, but I do think that with vata, if there's a feeling of spaciousness or ungroundedness when there's an imbalance, that food can be heavy food can be an easy way to feel grounded. So it's almost like eating until I feel heavy and sleepy and grounded, right?
Yeah.
I find that a lot.
Yeah. And best way to feel this sense of satisfaction, we feel satisfied when we feel loved, when we feel content. So best taste that works on a mental level is fat and sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's like. It's the same receptors in your brain. When you have your serotonin levels are high or the dopamines are high, you feel that, but it can also be brought by eating sweet and fatty food.
Yeah. And then obviously that goes back to that's how we first experienced love as a child. I think we've discussed this before. We're getting food. It's a nurturing. We're getting it from our parent. And there's that correlation then between food and love. And then the sweet taste being, the earthy taste of the earthy quality of the sweet taste. So all that plays a role here, right?
Yes, and I want to just, one thought I got a insight here is just, see, we as a kid, we experience discomfort and pain and we cry. It could be hunger or something. What mothers usually do, they give the breast milk, right? And breast milk is sweet and, it has got this milky, sweet, oily nature in it. So there is, like in our brain from the begin our life, a connection to discomfort, to having this soothing sense of swallowing something which is sweet and fat. So, this is how we start to experience this feeling of comfort, by held by our mother plus her care, and then having this sweet liquid that we drink. And later on, we learn to comfort ourselves like that. But as we grow, I think we also need to identify that we are like, after all the mammals, human beings are the one we need to be looked after. We are completely helpless when you're born, but other mammals can just have to get up and go and, move, even though their mothers feed them breast milk. But human beings are completely in a state of a different form of tamas. We are inactive. We can't move. We can't survive by ourselves, completely dependent, right? But as we figure out our own freedom and dependency, it also need to change that comfort seeking quality. It should not be primary. Then we need to find a way to, that's why we have the ability to work with our mind and transform. So we can use this comfort and connection and satisfaction using the mind qualities, practices, and understanding our deeper connection, deeper identity, our relationship to this world and other beings, and raising and connecting to the spiritual quality. So that's where we transform, even though we start that attachment and then connection. If you're talking, the chakra concept is also like, Muladhara and Swadhisthana is the early chakra, but we have the ability to transcend and transform and elevate ourselves. And that's need to happen. And what doesn't happen, as aruchi starts as a symptom of any diseases, and then we don't heal that properly. We heal on our mind level. Our buddhi just goes brashta. That means it just loses our intelligence. We lose our intelligence of who we are, how our body works, and it totally disconnected from the nature. I'm here talking about the nature means surrounding, also nature of my own body, my own intelligence, my own existence, and understanding of that.
Yeah, great points brought up there. Yeah, and particularly I've talked recently and in other episodes about in this world of high stress, and there's so much coming in through the senses. We're so overwhelmed, but we can take comfort in the seeking of pleasure, living out our desires and so on, and remaining in those lower three chakras that you talk about and being stuck in that energy. Whereas, as you say, we want to rise up into the higher chakras, the heart chakra and above, and having more of that awareness. Could you talk a bit more about this buddhi, our natural innate intelligence?
Buddhi, each and every cell has its own intelligence. The cell knows when to divide your DNA and, do its function, when to multiply, and when it stops its production. So this is intelligence. It's been created the time we are conceived in our mother's womb, organized and engineered in such a perfect way. And that need to be nurtured by connecting to the rhythm of the nature, the rhythm of the nature and the clock in our body. That's another way you connect to that. So you keep the process of the intelligence, and then connecting to the urges, what we call in Ayurveda, the Vegas. So this is also another way you kind of making this body or the organism work and maintain that intelligence. It's like a program that's running behind. And you have a computer which has got a program, it runs certain way, and then you just need to maintain. You try not to go against the written program. You cannot operate, right? So the following the routines, the dinacharya, paying attention to rutucharya, following the rhythm of your body, the natural clock inside, respecting the Vegas. Vegas are nothing but different urges your body creates as a correction or to maintain the mechanism of your body. One of the urges is hunger. So body tells that it's a time to eat. Body needs fuel and food. It creates hunger. Thirst is another one. And then, the need for burping, need for defecation, need for urination. These all put in place, or sneezing. This is all put in place to correct the whole metabolism, keep us in tune with the body's needs. And total 13 kind of urges. Maybe we could do another podcast on that to understand, how this plays a role and what happens when we don't listen to those urges that the body nature. So you can say it's a reflexes created to prevent any damage, prevent and listen to the body's call and needs. So, in that way, if we do this, then we are inclined with the buddhi of the body. And our body, what is it needed. And it doesn't come with doubt, question. It's a pure intuition. You can say the buddhi is directly connected to intuition. And your intuition tells you in certain way, ooh, this food is not good. I don't feel good after eating. Some we can learn from experience. If you don't know, if you're not inclined, if your intuition is not working that great or you're not so connected, you can develop them. You eat the food and you know that it doesn't feel good. And mindful eating is another way to feel for it, and another way to know when to stop eating. And these practices tells you the more you connect to yourself, more you indulge in activities which are sattvic, this buddhi is nurtured. You just need to do is indulge in sattvic activities. Be with group of people who are sattvic, not rajasic, not aggressive, kind, compassionate, gentler, and also spending time on brahmacharya, which means also constantly increasing your awareness, which also process of learning, educating yourself. So these are the things if you do, just follow the path of incline towards the Sattvic lifestyle, Sattvic activities, Sattvic food. This itself will help us to be tuned with our Buddhi. You don't need to do, different. You don't need to go and do a workshop or a retreat in order to be. So just cultivate Sattvic quality. So your Buddhi is fine-tuned. You're connected.
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that. You don't have to outsource this. You can do this yourself. This is the foundational structure of Ayurveda, is having the daily practices, the daily dinacharya, living in tune with the circadian rhythms, as you said, the ritucharya, the seasonal, living in tune with your age and your season of life, and not ignoring the natural urges. And so it is great to see that if once we set this foundational structure in place of these simple aligning to nature, and that will bring us great clarity and awareness and living a sattvic life, that this can prevent these imbalances arising. And that's why it's so important. And Ayurveda always goes back to this holistic health system of bringing that foundation. But let's talk a little bit more about eating disorders and the long-term physical and mental effects, because we do see it very prevalent in teens who are so susceptible to it, and even more so nowadays with, like I said, social media and filters and comparison and all that. But we see it continuing into adulthood a lot of times. So what are some of the long-term effects of disordered eating?
Mm-hmm. Long-term effect, simple way of looking at it is like a malnourishment. And then completely, disturbance of your GI tract, digestive system. Like if you say anorexia, you don't eat, and then you don't let the natural process of body releasing the enzymes and then body using the nutrition. So it's malnourishment is one of the biggest thing that happens in anorexia. And if you talk about bulimia, then, regurgitation of the food, like a whole acid moves upward, affecting, the line of your stomach, your esophagus, teeth, acid burning the teeth and all those things on a physical structural level. And then osteoporosis is one of the common thing because malnourishment and all those things. So basically anything the food's supposed to do and nourish and take care of your physiology, so that would be affected. So loss of body mass, and it's affecting your mind, intelligence, thinking clarity, ability to learn and retain knowledge. These things going to be affected, and the quality of your skin and your health and, vibrancy, all those things. Okay, malnourishment is one of the biggest thing. And then as it continues, if you don't interfere that, or you don't get the support to interfere that, by connecting back to your nature and following the Sattvic way of living, it almost becomes like an illusion of the mind, because a person in a prolonged state of being in that condition, is living in an illusion of wanting to be something different, illusion around food and the relationship to food, phobia around food, or a altered relationship to food. No matter at this stage, when it becomes chronic, physical nourishment becomes really difficult because you're in an illusion state. You're in a very tamasic state. Tamas is when there is a dullness and there's no light and you cannot see anything. What's the reality? What's real? The power to discriminate is completely lost. It's almost like an addiction. So you need to treat the tamas, that ignorance, illusion, stagnation, all those things. Here comes a big role of anything to do with, we call in Ayurveda, sattvavajaya. You need to work on your mind. Other routines, discipline, all those things are supportive, but anything to work on your mind and bringing the sattvic quality. Simple as chanting can help. I've seen, chanting some mantras, or listening to that in the background of your home or you're working, and rituals. All these things plays a huge role in getting the dullness, the tamas out of your mind. And once you clear that, it's almost like an ama, like a thick layer where you can't see anything beyond because you're stuck into a altered identity of what's food and how it's going to affect and how you're looking and all those things. So that need to be cleared. And then once the tamas is reduced, then you start seeing there's some rajasic quality. That rajas is needed here to make change and move forward, wanting to connect to the reality and cutting off all this negative chatter that goes in the mind and having that courage and strength. And that will lead you to go and connect to sattva and to more embrace the reality. Not get stuck in the body identity.
Right. Yeah. Because as you said, there can be this maya, this disillusion, this body dysmorphia, and then that can alter the navigation and your clarity and so on. But it really needs to be a holistic approach, right? Especially if it's a long-term disordered eating situation. I mean, really need a lot of support holistically, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah. Other than the malnourishment leading to other thing, and one of the biggest challenge I see is also hormonal imbalance. All the hormones, particularly the female hormones, reproductive hormones, estrogen, progesterone, completely get messed up. And then these are the hormones to nourish and have this cyclical, like how seasons change and replenish the soil and the plants. That doesn't happen. There's a cessation. So as a result of aging process speeds up.
Yeah. Yeah. So with the nutrition of the dhatus and the reproductive tissues being the last ones to be nourished.
Yes.
That's getting eliminated there. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it does have so much long-term effects. And what is the Ayurvedic protocol for treating eating disorders?
One is kindness and compassion for what the person is going through. Love, nurture, care is very important. And yes, the Ayurvedic way of Sattva Vajaya therapy with whatever the spiritual practice, not anything to do with any religion, either through, waking up with the sunrise and connecting the sun to the nature, having a rituals and routine of dinacharya practices, self-care methods, simple nurturing food, mantras, mudras, all these practices. Definitely yoga plays a big role, as yoga's definition is union, but the other definition is chitta vritti nirodhana. That means tackling the confusion and distraction of mind getting attached to something which is not true, which is deviated away from the true nature of who we are, our connection to the nature and understanding life and purpose of life. So yoga plays a huge role. Meditation can help greatly, and practice of some pranayamas, gentle ones, where you're connecting to your prana, because once the prana is moving rhythmically in your channels, your mind is going to stay stable. When prana is agitated or lack of prana, that's where it disturbs the mind and vata aggravates. So this is on a physical and ritual and level. Then you would look into correcting the agni, because even if you work on the mind and you start loving the food and eating, if your agni is not working well, then you will have other problems coming out of it from ama. So as you do this, create these healthy routines and regimens and yoga practice and stuff, you also want to work on correcting the agni. So agni could be completely manda if it is kapha influence, or completely vishama. So you just want to bring that agni to balance. Here in this stage, doing it as a panchakarma therapy is not so ideal. What you want to do is more of a rejuvenation version of the panchakarma, using the panchakarma, not the panchashodhana therapy, like a not intensive purgation or basti or anything, but you would use the panchakarma treatments like a shirodhara, abhyanga. So we call that as a rejuvenation panchakarma, to nurture, calm the body, nourish the body, correct the agni, and feeling grounded and loved and nurtured. So this would be the method that we would adopt, along with some fruits that to support the agni and balance the vata, calm the nervous system.
Right. Yeah. And of course, it needs to be tailored to each individual, depending on if there's a rajas or tamas quality to it. Of course, like you said, you started off that protocol with talking about having compassion for the person and the situation they're in. And I think it can be very hard for people who are watching their loved ones go through this.
Yes.
And that's very challenging. So what advice would you give to somebody out there who's listening
and they know someone, either maybe they're suffering from themselves and they're ready to make a change, or they're concerned about a loved one's disordered eating, because that can be very hard.
Yeah, definitely, because you seen them suffering and, being very close, if it is your child or your sister or a brother or someone or your partner, it's you feel helpless because you might know what could help the person and support the person, but being in a relationship in any form, it's hard for you to give that support or started giving the support and not being accepted, because you're also not in a position to heal this, because it is almost, it's a health condition. So I think best thing would be, if you're caring for someone who are in situation, you should take a professional help, and seek help and give the responsibility for a professional person to help these people and just support them with whatever the recommendation comes for being there, kindness and compassion and being around. I think you cannot become the healer in caring for any of the people that you're in. And people who are in the shoes of suffering from this condition, you got to speak to your relatives or, parents or, your partners, or communicate this, and then they can also help you to find the right help. Or if you already identify yourself and there's no one to talk, then connect to psychologist, or go to a holistic health center and seek help, because this is something you cannot deal on your own, because there's so many things involved and affected, and you're kind of deep in the middle of getting affected. Your mind is not able to see things, hear things, and things. Tamas is a state when there is dullness, and it's like addiction. When you're in an addiction state, you want to be helped and taken care of.
Yeah, great point there. I think it's very important, as you said, that if you're in a relationship with somebody, be it familial or romantic relationship, and you're seeing your loved one go through this pattern of disordered eating, is not trying to be that healer, that, you need more help in this situation, because there's a huge emotional, mental component to this, and it really needs some professional help. And I think, going back to what you said earlier about these foundations of Ayurveda in regards to the dinacharya, living in tune with the circadian rhythms and so on, those can be great series of small wins for somebody. So doing that along with getting the professional help, I think, can be really great, because what we want to do here is empower the person, have them living a more sattvic life. So bringing in those simple steps of living in tune with the circadian rhythms in regard waking and sleeping and getting out in nature, living in tune with the season. And that's where a loved one could support you by doing these practices with you, these self-care, mindfulness practices. I think they can be great small wins for an individual.
Absolutely. It's like you taking a first step to caring yourself and caring the way that body needs to be cared.
Exactly. Dr. Sujatha, is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to speak about on the subject?
Just as what to see from my practices itself, in this condition, people also so much pay attention to doing extreme physical activities. They just focus the healing through physical activities to control. It can give a little bit of distraction and to stay focused, but extreme physical activities is not supportive, because it's again aggravates vata, and vata is out of balance, is the cause of all the confusion. So physical exercise is needed. And if anybody's going through anorexia or bulimia, do an exercise in a very mindful way, and not late in the evenings, or not in the midday time, or not in extremely heated environment. Do mindful exercises. Great would be to go for walks or practice yoga. And also, don't do too intense yoga here. Yoga should not be like a sports or a competition. more mindful. And even if you do the yoga with proper staying in a pose and connecting to your breath and, do it in the right time of the day, early morning is the best. I think exercise is also used too much in trying to control the body weight and, wanting to look different. So I would put a little role on not to overly indulge and make the situation worse.
Absolutely. It's a great point. And we mentioned, you mentioned there anorexia and bulimia, but there's a whole scale of disordered eating.
Yeah.
It can take, like we mentioned those two, we mentioned binging and so on, but it can be a scale of it, right?
Yeah, emotional eating or, addiction to certain group of food. So whole way term is, disordered eating.
Absolutely. And then in the case of teens at that very impressionable age, and if a parent or guardian has seen a teen going through this, I mean, they're just at an age where everything is changing. Hormones are coming on board and there's a state of kind of losing control and wanting to control something. What advice would you have there for parents?
I think to a degree, I think we all go, having bit of a more awareness of our body looking, wanting to looking beautiful or attractive. And when we reach puberty, I think physiologically these qualities are put out, right? So I think to a small degree, mainly girls, and I do see boys also having this issue, but generally speaking, majority of it's girls have a general tendency of, don't want to eat this much or don't want to eat that much. So, don't go so much on to controlling and telling them or forcing them to do, just to be aware of it, watchful. Because if you kind of go against or put your fear into it, it also can affect them and can create stress for them. I think they will try to a degree, all girls going to try to, nowadays go online and check what food is helpful, what is healthy, what can keep me skinny, what would help, all those things. So I think there's a general exploration, testing out is there. And, note that, but don't try to see this as an alarming sign and jump into it and overbearing and controlling. Or don't bring your fear. That's the one thing I would say to generally for the parents. The other thing, if it is getting extreme and stuff, just talk to them as a friend. Talk to them to see what's going on. Just listen to them. And then, just to, comfort them and then, take some help and to, immediately seek help once you have spoken and you understand their pain and stuff. Don't freak out. The more you freak out, it's going to also stress them and to see that, they're burdening or becoming a problem for their parents. So I think the more you stay stronger and not freaking out and not getting all anxious about it, but still taking action is the best way to support your child.
Great. And you made a great point there about putting the parent or guardian, putting their fear on the child. And also a child is like a sponge, as we know, and they're watching your eating habits as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So if there's disordered
what you say
eating
about the food or what you talk to your kids, be mindful of the words you use.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if there's any disordered eating with the parent, then that can carry through. We see that a lot as well. Dr. Sujatha, great discussion. And before we finish up here, I'd love for you to tell people where they can find out more about you and the clinic, AmrtaSiddhi, and anything else that you wanted to share. Please.
Okay. Thank you all for listening. And if you're looking for further help or a consultation, or if you already started in your journey in taking care of any of these conditions that we'll talk today, for further assistance to support you, you can always come to our Ayurvedic Health Center in Bali, in Ubud. And if you're looking for a consultation, you can also come to the center, or if you're in a different part of the world and not able to travel, you can reach me for a Zoom sessions online. And over the period, I learned to, how to support people from the distance. So if cannot travel, you can get benefit through that. You can look at our website, www.AmrtaSiddhi.com. I think Colette will put the link also. And then there are a few articles and stuff on our website. We have some good recipes for people to prepare in an Ayurvedic meal. So all those things are handy, and you can start this as a starter point for you.
Great. Dr. Sujatha, thank you so much. I'm so glad we had this conversation today. You shared a lot of great information here. I appreciate you. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Colette.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Dr. Sujatha, and please check out the show notes for all the links mentioned. If you think this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them so we can spread this wisdom of Ayurveda. If you would like support on your Ayurvedic healing journey, then please check out my online services. I offer online consultations, cleanses, and educational program. You can check out the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. And if you haven't already subscribed or followed the podcast, please do so, and the new weekly episodes will automatically download for you. And if you're finding this content helpful, I would appreciate a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can find me on social media. On Instagram, my new page is Elements of Ayurveda Podcast. And on Facebook, I'm under Elements Healing and Wellbeing. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.